Hello everyone, and we are at the test for anions. And the test for anions basically is again using several different reactions to confirm the presence of that anion. And we actually need to know a few anions. Let's see what we have. We have the chloride ion, one. Iodide ion, which is very similar to the chloride ion because it belongs to the same group. We have the sulfate ion and the nitrate ion, and lastly, I believe, yes, the carbonate ion. So we have 5 anions, negative ions, to know how to test for. So the chloride ion, we are actually using the fact that silver chloride is insoluble. Remember, SML, silver, mercury and lead-2 chloride is insoluble in water. So I'm going to add first the nitric acid, right? I add the nitric acid, and then after that, I add silver nitrate, and this will actually form the white precipitate. This white precipitate is actually my silver chloride. So what is happening over here? All right. So what is happening is that my silver ions that is floating in my silver nitrate reacts with the chloride ions that I want to test if there is chloride ions, and this will form silver chloride, AgCl, which is insoluble in water, and this is my white precipitate. Then some of you might be wondering, Mr. Benjamin, then why is there a need to add this nitric acid over here? All right, so we need to remember that carbonates are also insoluble in water. So if I have carbonates inside, I will not be able to see whether it is really a chloride or it's carbonate. So the reason why I add nitric acid, and this is something that is very important, please put a star, it is to remove any carbonate impurities, right? Because we want to test for chlorides and not carbonates, so we need to remove all the carbonates, or not, it will give us a white precipitate. And this actually prevents what we call false positive test. So a false positive test is like, you know, your COVID test, you get a positive result, but actually maybe you don't have COVID. So that is what we call a false positive test. You tested positive, but you actually don't have. So the reason why we add nitric acid is to prevent this false positive test when we get a white PBT, but actually we don't have chlorides. So that is why we add nitric acid. So in the iodide ion, we also add the nitric acid first to remove the carbonates to prevent false positive. Again, we add silver nitrate, right? But this time we form a yellow precipitate, and this yellow precipitate is actually our silver iodide. Silver iodide is yellow, and you can also form lead, right? You can also use lead, you can also form silver. So lead-2 iodide is 1. You can also have the silver iodide, and silver iodide, lead iodide, silver halide, lead halide, they are all insoluble in water. And silver iodide, like lead iodide, both of them are actually yellow in color. Okay, so we can use these to test for iodide and for chloride. Now, for the next one, for sulfates, right? For chlorides, we use the SML, we use the silver, right? For sulfates, what do you think we will use? We will use either the C, B, or L. So scientists have found that actually barium is a good test. So again, we add nitric acid. And remember what we said above, the nitric acid is to prevent false positive tests by removing any carbonates. We don't want the carbonates inside. So after we add the acid, we will add the barium nitrate, which is going to give us the white precipitate, because the barium nitrate will react with the sulfate ions to form my white precipitate. And this white precipitate is actually my barium sulfate. So what's the reaction that's going on? We have our barium ions, right, that I add into the reaction. And these barium ions react with the sulfate ions that are inside the solution. And when these barium ions and sulfate ions react together, I get my barium sulfate. And this barium sulfate is actually solid. And this is my white PPT. Okay? Right, next one is a nitrate test. So nitrate ions, you test it with 3 things. Remember, 3 things. You need to add sodium hydroxide. Then you need to add aluminium foil. And finally, you need to heat. The interesting thing about nitrates is that when you add sodium hydroxide, aluminum foil, and you warm, it will produce ammonia. And then we want to test for ammonia, so I use my damp red litmus paper. This is the fourth thing. So I add sodium hydroxide, aluminum foil, then I warm it, and then I test it with my red litmus paper. So when you warm it, the gas produced will turn the damp red litmus paper blue, and the gas produced is ammonia gas, means that nitrate ions is present. Okay? Now, the last test, which is actually the most simple, is the carbonate test. Like how we use nitric acid to remove the carbonate, we can also test for carbonate by adding acid. So we just add the acid, and then if it bubbles, right, we bubble the gas through lime water, and if the lime water have white precipitate, we know that the gas produced is carbon dioxide. And if the gas is carbon dioxide, therefore we know that some carbonates is present. And the chemistry behind this is that because if there's carbonates in the solution, it will definitely react with the acid to form carbon dioxide. Alright, so these are the 5 anion tests. I believe there will be some videos for you to see, I believe, right? And then you need to go remember these, practice, and you'll get better at it. Alright, I'll see you for the practices in the future. Bye.